John Fitzgerald is understandably proud of his company's Tangara project, and he's disappointed by comments from State Transport Minister Bruce Baird, which imply that delays in putting the trains into service in Sydney are due to financial and technical problems at Gninins. Mr Fitzgerald concedes there have been minor hitches, such as complaints by passengers about air conditioning temperatures and a technical dispute with the SRA over noise levels from the track and wheels. But he says the minister's suggestion that Tangaras aren't going to service due to a whole number of technical shortfalls is plain rubbish.
We're being paid for the trains as we're delivering them. And this is train number 28 sitting behind me now. Now there are 27 trains in Sydney. Now the decision of whether the SRA put them into service or not is their decision, not ours. I just want to reassure everybody it's an excellent train, as you can see, and as I'm sure the commuters in Sydney see.
The Minister's office has since said the remarks were made off the cuff without a briefing at the end of a news conference. While the Tangaras continue to roll off the line, Gninin has also unveiled the first loco in another lucrative contract. The first of 14 Dash 8 locos rolled out of the assembly shed today. The high-speed freight trains will enter service with Australian National Railways on the long haul across the Nullarbor, where the giant motors will reach astonishing speeds.
In Notch 8, which is flat out, going across the Nullarbor, will be 140 kilometres an hour.
The first of the locos will be formally handed over to Australian National in July. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It's a grown-up game of cowboys and Indians, weekend warriors releasing the tensions of daily life.
People think we're training terrorists and it's just not so.
Dressed in their battle greens, the soldiers play a game of military intelligence, using small gas-powered guns to mark the enemy with paint-filled pellets. The game is illegal in New South Wales, Western Australia and Tasmania. Gun laws stipulating that the gas-powered rifles are unsafe. However, skirmish supporters say with strict guidelines, it's safer than playing most sports.
As everybody's allowed to play games, this is the game I enjoy. I like getting out into the natural bushland and enjoying myself.
While the paintball warriors admit to a certain amount of on-the-field aggression, they say it stops there. Any talk of Rambos heading out to public streets is shunned completely.
I'm certainly not a Rambo. I'm just a poor old man trying to have a bit of fun.
16 10-man teams are competing at Thornton this weekend for the National Championships. From there, an Aussie team will be picked for the South Pacific titles in September. Skirmish is popular in New Zealand and Britain. In the US, titles offer prize money in excess of $100,000. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The alarm was raised at 11:30 this morning when a family picnic group discovered 4-year-old Jonathan Saunter of Mandalong had wandered away from the boarding house dam picnic site. Relatives and picnickers searched the area before alerting police, SES rescue squads and the Westpac rescue helicopter. Fears mounted for the safety of the youngster as the afternoon closed on the dense forest. A short time later, 2 more children from another family were also reported missing. The 2 boys had teamed up to go exploring and found Jonathan 5 kilometres away from the picnic site. They then made their way back to a road and were spotted by searchers. Back at the picnic site, a sigh of relief was heard. Suffering leech bites, the cold and muddied trio were returned to the open arms of their parents. The day's unlikely heroes were 9-year-old Luke Stowe of Ellamore Vale and his 7-year-old cousin Jake West Subi of Curry Curry.
We're just walking down the bridge and we found him on the bridge and we started talking and then we walked along the thing and we didn't notice that the track stopped and then we were walking through scrub and bush and water and mud.
Did you know where you were?
No. Not until we found the station and we looked on the sun and if our parents weren't back here then we were going to walk to Cessnock because we live near Cessnock.
And was Jonathan frightened? Were you guys frightened when you were together and you were lost?
A bit. Yeah, a bit. And they were complaining about food. I told them don't panic.
The relief for Jonathan's parents was obvious, and the 4-year-old had quite a tale for his dad. A 50-centimetre cast-iron water main on the corner of Johnston and Lowry Streets burst at about 3:30. Water from the break lifted the surface of the roadway and a metre-high flash flood lapped the floorboards of houses and flowed through a service station. The water pushed cars sideways and marooned residents in their homes. The main was supplied from the South Wallsend Reservoir and the flow has been shut off. Waterboard crews are working through the night to repair the break.
The stricken aircraft came to rest in darkness in heavily timbered wetlands near Madawi, just a few minutes flight short of the runway at RAF Base Williamtown. The crew of a rescue helicopter dispatched from the base was amazed to find the pilot and 4 passengers alive and well, waving from the downed aircraft's wing. Shortly later, they were at Williamtown recounting their incredible escape. The pilot, Ray Amaz, who turned 22 today, was on an overnight flight from Coolangatta to Bankstown when the single-engine Beach Bonanza lost power.
All through your training, you're taught that, the procedures of an engine failure. You never think it's ever going to happen to you.
Air Traffic Control in Sydney immediately contacted RAF Base Williamtown, who alerted their rescue helicopter. The helicopter crew admit that when they were told of the crash site, they held little hopes of finding survivors.
Probably another minute further on either way, and they would have been in an unsurvivable position, that's for sure. They were very lucky.
Ray, a pilot with only 200 hours experience, said he had little time to choose a landing place in total darkness.
When you get to 300 feet, there's nothing there. All of a sudden you see the trees and you just make the best landing you can possibly make in the trees.
What advice did you give to the passengers?
Just remain calm and don't panic.
When we did land, it was like a bit of a jolt and everything went flying, obviously, and here we are, luckily.
Feel incredibly lucky.
Totally.
Now that they've
We've been
explained
told
it to us.
by everybody who's rescued us, and we actually just looked on the map earlier on, and the position we landed is like a million in one shot.
At first, the rescue helicopter couldn't locate the aircraft in the pre-dawn blackness, but another passenger, Paul Elchar, used the flash gun on his camera to attract their attention. The miracle survivors are all employees at a Sydney hairdressing salon. After posing with their rescuers for a few souvenir snapshots, they were taken for an unscheduled breakfast courtesy of the RAAF, leaving the Bureau of Air Safety Investigations with the difficult task of reaching the aircraft to establish why its engine failed. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
There were emotional scenes as the 2 sons and friends of Robert Thomas Oakes returned to the crash scene today. The 46-year-old New Lambton man was killed as he apparently tried to overtake traffic 14 kilometres north of Raymond Terrace. Police say his Ford Falcon smashed head-on into a northbound Land Cruiser, which then spun and veered into a third vehicle. The force of the head-on impact trapped both drivers, and once again emergency services were called to prise away twisted metal. An East Maitland family, Robert Harris, his wife and 8-year-old son were in the Land Cruiser. Today, Mr Harris remains in intensive care with head injuries. His condition serious but stable. But there was little chance for the driver of the Falcon. It took rescue services some time to free the man's body from the mangled wreck of his car. Today, although overcome with grief, a friend of the dead man called on the politicians to pay heed to the state of the highway.
Deaths like this just shouldn't be happening.
Once again, a life has been lost in a head-on collision on the notorious Pacific Highway. Again, underlining the call by State Coroner Kevin Waller, for a dual carriageway to replace this killer stretch of road. Further north, another accident last night at Waterholes Gap. A casino man is in Royal Newcastle Hospital with suspected spinal injuries after he lost control of his vehicle, veered across the wrong side of the road and ploughed into a tree. But as state and federal authorities quibble over the cost of upgrading the Pacific Highway, the family and friends of victims like Robert Oakes are left to rebuild their lives.
I think a few of these politicians, they should come up here and try and have a weekend away with just ordinary Australians, ordinary people that want to get away up to the beach for the weekend and get out here into this traffic, onto this blooming road here. You can't call it a road in places. Just try and get to somewhere safely, and Coroner Waller wasn't wrong when he said that this road had to be upgraded.
The resource program is based on a policy launched at the end of 1986 to meet the new needs of kindergarten children when the age of school entry was dropped to 4 years and 6 months. It was recognised then that there was a big gap in kindergarten children's physical, emotional and language levels. Today, Alan Beard of the Education Department officially launched the package, which will benefit anyone teaching children from birth to the age of 8. This package has been used at Mayfield to develop a special educational programme, highlighted today by some of the pupils. The emphasis is on play and the vital role it has in learning and social interaction.
If a child comes out of this stage of their lives fearing the process of learning, then they're crippled for life. If to learn means to face up to ridicule, to be told they're wrong, then they have a real difficulty with learning all their life. But if they come out of this period of their childhood loving to learn, knowing that learning is getting reward and recognition for having tried, then they'll go on to become learning adults and have a successful life.
Horrific. It was horrific. The seas were huge. It was gale force winds. The spray was whipped up. It was very unpleasant. And what more can I say? It was a very traumatic experience for me.
The two Lake Macquarie yachts, Rock and Robin and Winifred, set off for a family holiday voyage to Noumea. A week out, they hit the worst storms in 20 years. Only the battered Winifred limped into Noumea. Rock and Robin sank in huge seas. Its skipper, Grant Wilshire, his son Robert and 2 other crewmen are still missing. An official search involving military aircraft was called off on Monday, and since then Mr Wilshire's family have been financing a search of their own. Michael Wood is the son-in-law of Mr Wilshire and believes sightings of the Rock and Robin's crew clambering into a life raft dropped by an RAAF aircraft warrant the search to be continued.
We firmly believe, the whole family, that while there's hope, the search should continue. We understand the pragmatic nature of the government. We don't support it necessarily. We believe that they've got the best life raft that they could have. There's plenty of provisions. There's facilities to make their own water with stills. They've got rations. They've got everything they need. We've been told by other sources that, in fact, people have lived 6 weeks in these life rafts.
After 6 days, the Wilshire family's Lake Macquarie home resembles a sea rescue centre. They've petitioned the help of local members and of marine experts the length of the Queensland coast. Late this afternoon, they heard the Premier's Department will review their cause. Their biggest problem is finance to keep going.
At the moment, there's not much more that we can do than what we are. The 2 aeroplanes that we have engaged to do the search is about the means that we can afford at the moment, and that's only on a day-to-day basis. Tonight we'll have to sit down with the family and think about where we're going to get some more money from.
While Newcastle groups continue to argue over whether the rail line should continue to Newcastle or terminate at Civic, City Rail has been busy devising plans for a lavish transport interchange. Today it made public the plans behind its submission to Newcastle CBD and Transport Study. The interchange would create a plaza complex at Civic, linking rail, buses, coaches and taxis, passenger facilities and shops. Estimated cost is $13 million.
This provides us the opportunity to put in place all the best practice of interchange facilities, and I think that's the key to the Civic proposal. I do in fact think the proposal could be a vital cog in the redevelopment of Newcastle.
But the vision for revitalisation goes even further. Plans are to replace ageing suburban diesel trains with new rolling stock at a cost of $22 million.
The northern line to Maitland into the Hunter Valley, the rolling stock there is old, it's had its day, needs replacing, and there is now available modern diesel units that could effectively carry the Newcastle system through into the 21st century in style.
To help increase passenger numbers, stations along the Newcastle suburban route would have $4 million spent on improvements. Level crossings would be removed and the existing road system would need upgrading, as this artist's impression of Wickham suggests. City Rail says terminating the rail line at Civic is not its best commercial option, and the plans will need ongoing government support. But it's thought the cost could be partially offset by the sale of railway land valued at $32 million, plus development by private enterprise. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
The match last Sunday was one that BHP Austral should have won by plenty, but all attempts to get on the scoreboard bar one went astray, and as often happens, the opposition score against the run of play, and it's all over bar the shouting. Although disappointed with a 1-2 scoreline with Rockdale, the feelings all go at Birmingham Gardens.
I think the positive point out of it was we played quite well, we created the chances, so in that respect we've got to be a good chance to come back from a loss like that.
Canberra in the capital is a huge task, and Australs will rely heavily on their National League imports Robbie Ironside and Gary Phillips. Ironside made heaps of space and scoring chances, but couldn't convert against Rockdale, but is prepared for the extra attention paid to him and Phillips.
Well, it's there, you know, you're playing against guys, they know who you are and they're going to mark you a bit tighter and that, but you know, it's got to be good for the other players on our side. They can take the pressure off them and they can have a bit more freedom to play. And saying that anyway, we should be good enough to null that extra attention, if you like, and come through and play better.
As a unit, Robbie Ironside is confident Australs can go all the way.
It's all there, it's just a matter of putting it all together on the day and scoring the goals.
The plane with 5 people on board came down in wetlands just 2 kilometres short of the Williamtown Air Base early on Tuesday morning. Miraculously, no one was injured. An attempt to salvage the craft yesterday failed as it was full of water and too heavy to be lifted out. Early today, rescue crews cut drainage holes in the plane's airframe and removed all possible extra weight, such as seating and doors. The Lloyd's rescue chopper attached a line and carefully lifted the craft centimetres above the water. Pilot Kingsley Woodsford-Smith said the 1,500 kilo weight pushed the chopper to its limits.
It was close, yeah. It was probably only 100 pounds or so in it, but once the rest of the water had drained out from the aircraft, there was no problem. Away we went.
The Beach Bonanza regained its flying wings but swung precariously as it was lifted 1 kilometre north to an Air Force bombing range. The landing this time, a perfect touchdown. The plane will now be inspected by the Bureau of Air Safety Investigation.
More than 120 competitors straddled 125 and 250cc machines and throttled their way around the twisting uneven course. A, B and C divisions rode against each other, and in the 125cc division it was Mark Kirkman from Griffith who stole the show to finish first on the day and now take over the lead in the state series. Kirkman was pressed hard all day by Lyndon Heffernan from Bargo and Kim Ashkenazi of Helensburgh, south of Sydney. After round 2, Mark Kirkman leads the series from Stan Birkin, who finished 4th yesterday, and Phil Robinson, who came in 5th. In the 250cc class, Lyndon Heffernan extracted some revenge to be crowned the champion of the day, and he now moves to 2nd place in the state title. Phil Robinson's 2nd at Barley Ranch was enough to move him into 1st spot, and a titanic tussle is assured in round 3 at Macarthur on the 5th of August. In the juniors, it was a local lad, Joel Elliott from Stanford Merthyr, who rode like the wind to collect the major trophy.
More than 15,000 workers in the hunt are covered by the Federated Ironworkers and the Australian Metalworkers unions. Until now, the rule of thumb has been tradesmen sign up with the AMWU and non-tradesmen the FIA. But a dispute simmering nationwide with accusations of both unions poaching each other's members has now set in Newcastle.
Well, I think it's unfortunate, unprincipled, and they've embarked on a battle that they can't win.
Dennis Nichols from the Metal Workers says a series of more than 4,000 leaflets calling on AMWU members to resign to join the FIA is unfair and underhanded. The FIA says they're simply trying to retain their numbers after an Australian-wide campaign by the AMWU to discredit their union. In national terms, the FIA is half the size of the AMWU, and they say they won't be pushed around.
The description I'd use are probably like the school bully. They're twice our size, and they go around picking and picking and picking, not only on our union, on others also, and then suddenly someone takes on the school bully, so we feel like we're the person who's taking on the school bully.
Back in the real world, it's now up to the workers to decide just who they want to represent them. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Lord Mayor used his casting vote for Council to adopt a recommendation for the termination of the rail line at the western end of the Hunter Mall near Bolton Street. The relocation of rail services would allow the extension of the Foreshore Park along the existing railway corridor. The Brown Street proposal came as a surprise to a large public gallery at the council meeting. Its feasibility is still to be examined by State Rail.
Each year the Commission publishes an environmental report on Lake Macquarie, detailing the problems and progress made in dealing with them. This year the Commission has praised the commitment of Lake Macquarie Council and nearby industries. It says that although sedimentation has increased dramatically, it is satisfied Council has implemented necessary controls to help slow the process. According to the report, erosion at Newstand Colliery is also being steadily reduced, and the Electricity Commission is assisting to reduce the depletion of fish stocks in the lake by discharging its cooled water elsewhere. The report, though, found the level of toxic chemicals in the northern end of the lake to be higher than expected and recommends further studies be carried out to determine its effect. All in all, the report is positive. However, it does criticise the amount of litter in and around the lake. It says that community attitudes and motivation are unsatisfactory, and despite regular clean-up days, people continue to dump their garbage.